Well, welcome back to Truck Tech here on FreightWaves TV. This is Alan Adler, the I keep saying Detroit, Midwest Bureau Chief for FreightWaves, and I'm really happy to see everybody back today. We have got a packed show for you today. This is so packed that we had to double the length. We've got a lot coming up today. We're going to start with Daryl Adams from the CEO of and president of the Shyft Group, but we'll get to Daryl after these few headlines. Shyft made some news, and Daryl's going to share that with us down in Indianapolis today. But they weren't the only ones. Mack Truck brings us an electric version of its MD, medium duty. Also, we've got some from a couple other makers, but Mack basically is bringing its second electric truck now. The first being the LR electric refuse hauler that it introduced back in 2020. They sold about 10,000 of those so far, and now adding to the Roanoke operations in Virginia will be the MD electric. This is something that they're going to need to do this. They have to do it because the regulations are going to require it. We also got medium duty news today from Hino, the Japanese subsidiary of Toyota Motor Corporation. They are also doing two versions, Hino is, of their class 4 and 5 electric trucks. They will work with C Electric out of Australia to use the C-Drive power system on their trucks. And then finally, Isuzu, a leader in the class 4 and 5 medium duty segment, is bringing out a electric truck version of its, market leading medium duty. So this can't be a coincidence, everyone. This is a common thread, and we're seeing it for one reason, and that's regulations. California is going to start in 2024 with some very difficult or stringent regulations around emissions, and the companies that want to play out there and in the states that adopt those regulations are going to have to go with what California wants. And of course, they're also getting some pressure from their customers as well, that have their own sustainability goals and want help getting those met. So this is what's happening. This is the theme that's developing down at the Work Truck Show. Now, we're going to bring in Daryl Adams, our first guest today. Daryl, it is great to see you. We haven't talked for some time, but thanks very much for coming to us. It looks like you might actually be in your truck. Is that true?
I am in the truck, Alan. Yes, in the new Class 5 today. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is great. We haven't talked in a while, and I couldn't make the show this year, so I really appreciate you coming on. This is the second iteration now of the Blue Arc. You want to take us through the Blue Arc program a little bit?
Sure, and thank you for having us on from the Shyft Group. So back in last year, exactly 1 year ago, we unveiled our Class 3, all brand new, custom from the ground up, Class 3 EV chassis. And then we also had a brand new Class 3 EV body on top of it. When we say EV body, that's much lighter weight, new technology, all brand new cab. And then this year, right, as we move up, so we're going to have a Class 3, 4, and 5 walk-in van. But this year, you see some of the pictures on there. We introduced a crew cab, which is a Class 5, with a dump body on the back. We've had some interest from some dealers and customers asking for a Class 5 vehicle that would have a dump body on it. We got landscaping people involved. We also could put a box truck on it. And as you can see where I'm sitting in the back of the truck where we have 4 seats along the back wall where we can carry a crew of 6. So we have 4 in the back. We have a jump seat and a driver's seat in the front. So a crew of 6 can go to a work site or moving, a house to move it, pack it. And so we're looking forward. It's the prototype. We want to see how the market looks at it. And so far at the show, it's been a hit. We've had people crawling in and out of it. We actually have people standing outside waiting for this to end so they can get back in and look around. So it's a great show this year, and looking forward to having some more conversation with you.
No dirt in the back that they're crawling through, I hope. You kept it clean back there?
we washed it up before we brought it to the show for sure.
There you go. There you go. Hey, I got a little bit ahead of myself, Daryl. I really did want to spend a little bit more time kind of introducing you. I just threw it right into the reveal, which is pretty exciting for you guys. I mean, you're doing some pretty interesting stuff out there. But I guess I really should say that you've been at Shyft now since 2014. Back then, it wasn't known as the Shyft Group. It was Spartan Motors. And in 2020, the name changed to the Shyft Group and sort of embodies what the company sees now as the future of mobility, I think. I mean, that's certainly part of your rationale. You have other brands that are very familiar to people under the Shyft Group, of course. Utilimaster, Royal Truck Body, Spartan RV. Spartan is still out there as the RV chassis, and a few others. You've got 3,800 employees in 10 states, which is impressive, and 2 countries. And you had just under $1 billion in profits in 2021. All pretty impressive stuff for a company. So I guess at that point, I mean, I'd like to know more from you. Let's talk a little bit about the Shyft Group in total, and then we'll go back to the Blue Arc.
Sure. As you mentioned, I started in 2014 as their COO, quickly moved into the CEO role in February of 15. And we put it was a turnaround at the time, Alan. So by the time we got the business turned around, it was late 17. We brought the team together. We developed a strategy. And that strategy was a 5-year strategy. Where do we want to go? What do we want to look like? So we started on the East Coast, putting up some states, right? We moved to Pennsylvania, started doing truck bodies there for the USPS. We acquired a company down in Florida. We acquired a company in California. So along the way, and then recently we bought a company up in Maine, and we divested our fire truck group as well. And the interesting point there is the fire truck group was what the company was founded on back in 1975. So when we looked at it and we saw where are the growth markets, right? As a public company, we want to continue to grow. And we saw the growth markets under Utilimaster as a delivery space, if you would. And then we started building out our infrastructure side of the business under specialty vehicles. So now we've sold the fire truck division. So we have 2 go-to-market brands. And then 2 divisions. And most recently, we brought out another go-to-market brand called Blue Arc. So total, we have 9 go-to-market brands. And at the NTA Truck Show this week, we have 5 of those brands represented with bodies and accessories and the Class 5 Blue Arc. So it's been, and you mentioned 21 revenue last year, 2022. We were just over $1 billion, so we exceeded the 1 billion mark for the first time in the company history.
That's awesome. Congratulations on that. I didn't feel good using a 2020 figure, but I didn't have time to look up a 22. I guess I'd ask you, Daryl, at this point, how's the rebranding working out? One of the reasons I think people do it is to draw attention to what's new. You've got some legacy brands, I suspect, that are really putting in a lot of those numbers on the revenue side and ultimately contributing to profit. So tell me a little bit about how the rebrand has worked out in terms of recognition, attracting new customers, things like that.
Yeah. So the reason we needed to rebrand was when we sold the fire truck division, because the company was called Spartan Motors, and the acquirer of that fire truck business wanted to keep the name Spartan. So we were actually forced into it, Alan, and we went through a whole process to come up with a new name. And I think it's really interesting because you did mention a lot of these brands are strong brands. They have really go-to-market following. And so we're keeping each one of those brands under the Shyft umbrella, if you will, so that each one still has their go-to-market brand. We think it's important because we do have Duramag, which came from Maine. We have Royal from the West Coast. We have Strobes R Us down in Florida. And if we change everything to Shyft, I think it would just confuse more people. So we decided to be a house of brands, if you will, versus a branded house.
Okay, more. I was going to use the term holding company, but really, house of brands certainly makes sense. Either way. So let's go back to the new Blue Arc now. What went into the decision to do a crew cab? I got to be honest, I don't think I've seen one. So maybe it was just something that. Tell me about it.
Sure. So we started with the Class 3 walk-in van, and we moved up to a Class 4 and 5. So we have those all designed, ready to go, and we're going to launch start launching a Class 3 in the second half of this year. The Class 5 will probably be in the first half of next year, maybe a little bit later. But as we were thinking of what do we want to take to the show, and we had some of our dealers, as we're setting up their dealer network for the Class 3, they were having conversations saying, look, we're getting questions about how do I get a vehicle that's EV that's not a delivery vehicle, or because everyone's going in that space. They were talking about landscaping was really the first thing that we got questioned on. Then we started thinking about it and said, with our range of over 200 miles per charge, you can move in an urban environment quite well. So if maybe we put a box truck on the back, or even a delivery of something that takes a stake truck, right? Or, we do a lot of Utilimaster. They do a lot of SSV, we call it, specialty service vehicles, which would be power companies and, DPW type trucks for municipalities. And this truck would fit right in with that as well. You can take a crew of 6 to a work site with some type of a service body in the back, or a stake truck, or even a small crane if you're a utility company. So it's a prototype. It wasn't much of a stretch for us to go from our Class 5 walk-in van to a Class 5 cab only. So we cut it off right behind the doors and put a wall on the back and put the seating in it. And then we have a straight chassis in the back. If you take that dump body off, it's just like a cab chassis, but it's a crew cab. It's a bigger cab to take a large crew.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, especially you mentioned landscaping. I'm thinking about that because you do see crews that, head out. You see them at Speedway in the morning, getting their coffee and that kind of thing. But then you also see them on job sites, and, being able to put 6 people in one truck, that's a pretty good sized firm for some of these landscapers. I don't know if it runs all the way over from a weight perspective into commercial landscaping or what you see. I mean, who all did you talk to as you were putting this prototype idea together?
Yeah, it was mainly our dealers that have people calling them and are interested in it. And again, it's a concept vehicle, if you will, a prototype vehicle, like the automotive guys do. And we're just trying to get interest here at the show. And I'll tell you, it was really, really popular today. People were inside of it. And I think what really excites the people when they're looking at this is it's something new. They haven't seen it before. And we do have a 200-mile range. We have a payload capacity from 6,000 to 10,000 pounds, and it's an all aluminum lightweight capacity. And the battery packs, right? We can run from 158 kilowatt up to 316. It can do a level 2 or DC fast charge. It's very similar. It's exactly the same as our 800 volt Class 3 system, which will go 4,000 cycles. And we put a little bit of a solar option on top. And what that's for is to help just keep the accessories going. And we do have, on one side of the truck, we do have a compartment underneath the dump body where we have charging stations in for power tools. So if you're even at a job site, you need a drill. So it can charge the drills as the drill batteries as you're working. Or, at my house, I moved to a electric blower. And I can charge those batteries while you're on the work site with the other battery. So we took some of that into consideration. It has a 360 camera. It has everything that the Class 3 walk-in van or the Class 5 walk-in van would have, but it's just a shorter cab. And, we're talking to people here at the show and picking up interest and seeing if it makes sense to proceed with it. But if we don't go with this truck, we still will have our Class 5 walk-in van that's we talked about last year when we rolled out the Class 3, and everyone's really excited about that product coming to the market.
Yeah, from a practicality standpoint, one of the things that, the F-150 Lightning talks about is being able to, charge the homes and things like that. But on a practical basis for a crew, and I'm still sticking with that landscaping crew, or maybe a construction crew, having access to electricity there, solar powered, presumably. I don't know how much you could get from that, but this all sounds pretty practical. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I want to take you one more place while we have a few minutes left, Daryl, and that is to the consolidation that we're seeing. You had some pretty strong comments when we talked a year or so ago, and we hadn't begun to see the shakeout that we're now starting to see. In fact, you've been involved directly picking up either the assets or the whole of the XL Fleet business. And I just want to ask you, I want to get your take on how much farther this consolidation is going to go. I mean, there may be everybody at the show this year that was there last year, absent one or two. What are you going to see next year?
Yeah, and I think, when we talk to our investors or even the customers, our traditional walk-in van customers, I think they're seeing what you described, right? Some of the fall off on some of these startups, and I think with the interest rates being as high as they are, the costs of just running a business today is increasing, and then you're taking the labor costs, as I mentioned, the business, and then you're taking development costs, and as they continue to use cash, and then you're looking at the recession that might be coming. I think, Alan, you said maybe a couple missing from the show this year. I think there's a little more than that missing. And I'm going to be walking around here in a bit with one of our investors, but I think next year you're going to see a significant amount drop off. And I think as we talked last year, we stayed within our class 3 to 5, where we always have run business. We've been there. We've built trucks. We didn't want to get into class 2 because we knew the OEMs were going to come there in class 2, as we knew the OEMs were coming up in 6, 7, and 8. So we stayed within our if you will, our wheelhouse. That's where we're going to continue to play. And we're excited about the products that we're bringing to the market. And we think because we're a viable company, we're funding this out of our cash flow. It's more to us to fund it ourselves. And I think our customers feel there's more buy-in from the team to get the product right. And that when we bring it to the market, we do have manufacturing capability. That's what we've been doing for 50 years on the body side. We've been building custom chassis on the motorhome and fire truck side for 47 years. So you combine that together, I think we have an awesome team for sure, and a great product that as soon as we start building production, we think it's going to speak for itself.
Well, you mentioned staying in your lane, basically, not getting tempted to expand too far and things like that. And you do have this background of, many, many years of doing what you do best. I guess, as you look at some of the startups, and again, things like cash flow and even revenue are elusive to them, the SPAC thing didn't do anybody any favors. Just give me a quick comment on that. I mean, I don't know that was, really wasn't some, you were a public company, so it really was an option for you, but.
Yeah, no, I think it was a viable alternative for some of those companies that wanted to get into this space. And I think, sometimes when you do that, the economy or the business, if we will, challenges gets in the way. And the reason we decided to do our own chassis, Alan, I think we talked last time, was we couldn't find a chassis in the space that met our requirements, especially our customers' requirements of a 15-year life frame minimum, right? We made the frame rails. That's why it's all ground up. We put the frame rails wider so the batteries fit between it, so they're safer instead of just attaching them on the side like some others at the show are doing. So. We did a lot of validating our current products in the ICE space, and then what are we going to do different in the EV space when we build a vehicle? And we took all those learnings over the years and brought it together, and I think we hit a home run.
Yeah, well, I'm good. We're going to find out. It's a good-looking vehicle. Listen, Daryl, we're going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much for coming on today. It was great to have you and have you there from the show where I can't be this year, but you can. And so it's good to have you. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate your time, and let us have this opportunity.
Great. Okay, so from one to the other, I mentioned that I'm not at the show this year, so I can't really, write too much from a first-person perspective. But what I can do is bring in somebody who is walking the floor and who is spending time evaluating what he sees, and that is a guest we tried to have a few weeks ago. We had a little bit of a mix-up, but that was Antti Lindstrom, who is the trucking analyst for S&P Global Mobility. Antti has been in this space for a while. He watches very carefully. He can't talk all the time about specific companies, but I'll do that, and he can answer in general. Antti, great to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thanks, Alan. Appreciate it. And let's hope that the technical issues are resolved now, unlike last time. But no, enjoy the opportunity.
So far, so good, right? I mean, you're on, I'm on, so all's good with the world.
Absolutely.
Hey, I wanted to start out. You've been there for a couple of days at least. I wanted to start out with just sort of some quick take impressions of what you're seeing and what's standing out to you.
Like we heard from the previous comments there too, that this is an industry that's in a flux there, and some of the players that we saw here last year, especially the newcomers, are not here anymore. And to me, that's a sign of the market getting more mature. And what impressed me was some of the presentations that I've listened to yesterday, especially in the green truck portion of the exhibition, that there were some comments made how the market is, the conversation is evolving into not so much about what the vehicles are, but how the infrastructure is built around that and service that market in the future. And then those are the main concerns. Obviously, you can have a truck there, but if the truck doesn't have a place to plug in, then the truck is not going to move much from where it's at. And obviously, one solution to that is the regional satellite operation that we see. But beyond that, we need to see some growth in the charging operations in the longer distance there.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much consensus now that the trucks and the vehicles are ahead of the charging infrastructure. We know there's some federal money out there and some other startups really that are working in terms of public charging, charging as a service, and various other things like that. It is interesting to note that some of these, opportunities. I think our friends, Mike Roth from the North American Council for Freight Efficiency on with us last week, and he's doing this Run on Less electric depot this year, just to find out what it looks like both behind the fence in terms of charging, on-site, overnight charging, things like that, and then also some of the public charging opportunities that are out there. So I think everybody's focused on the right things, but I don't think you get there overnight. And I suspect that's kind of, grudgingly what people are accepting, is that they're just not going to be able to have everything all the time. And yet what happened today? We see 3 new medium-duty electric trucks, Mack, Hino, and Isuzu, all announced them, maybe not in succession, but they all announced them today. That's a lot at one time, isn't it?
It is. And it's interesting that these are all established names that have been in the market for quite some time. So they obviously have the system in place how to do this. And the main investments for the infrastructure from their end of it are already in place. So it's not a matter of starting from zero or from scratch as with some of the newcomers in the market. So it's a matter of engineering the vehicle so that it accepts or how to configure the battery solution there, and then how the motor is installed there, and but then obviously selling it to the right applications. But I was impressed by what I was seeing here today. Yes.
Well, give me some. Have you had a chance to walk the floor much and see what's out there? Is there anything that really stands out?
Besides those, then yes, the Blue Arc project with that we saw introduced last year. That's being on display here, and also the SEA, for example, who was here with their own booth last year, also seems to have gotten some foothold there, because we see that they are being suppliers of the battery, not battery necessarily, but also the power system for some of the established players, including Mack. And
yeah, so I was going to say, well, Hino for sure. I mean, I know Hino called them out specifically as being, the source of their power system. Interesting because, we also, I don't know how present Cummins is there. This is their state, but they went to DC today to announce a rebranding of their new power division. They're into all of these things, including hydrogen and things like that. I don't imagine that we're seeing a lot in the hydrogen space for medium duty or for the work truck, but I guess we could at some point. I guess I'd be interested to know kind of where you see the preferred propulsion going. Is it pretty much all electric all the time for this group of vehicles?
Not necessarily. That was one of the main themes also in those lectures yesterday, that it's individual choices, depends on the application. So when you ask what's the solution, the answer is it depends. It depends on where you are. It depends on what sector or segment you are serving, and then what works best for that particular solution. And obviously price and then the fuel solution, that's a combination. So it all needs to be evaluated very carefully, and then from a number of different factors, and come together in the best way. It's interesting you pointed out Cummins, by the way, there too. Their presence here in Indianapolis this year is much less visible than what's been the case in the past. So at the same time, we know that they are focusing on internal combustion engine solutions using hydrogen. And I thought that I would see more of that here, but it's not the case. So that is an interesting coloring of the sector.
Well, let's talk about that sort of agnostic fuel approach that Cummins is kind of leading in. I think I've seen a few others that have talked about, essentially burning hydrogen. It still sets out some level of emissions, and we certainly know that there's some absolutists out there in California and others that don't want anything that burns, and Europe certainly is not in favor of it. But these are interim technologies. Now, maybe they don't fit as well to the medium duty, but Cummins did come with a 10-liter engine a few weeks ago to replace their 12-liter and the 9-liter. And so they're looking now to do those with the fuel agnostic approach and that sort of thing. So I wonder, do you see this as a good interim solution for not necessarily medium duty, for any of the trucks?
I think that there's a permanent place for hydrogen in some applications. And at the same time, let's not forget that this is not just a place for medium duties. Work Truck Show is always got a segment for heavy duty trucks as well. We have Class 8 trucks working in vocational applications, in municipal fleets, etc., for example. But I think that there's going to be some softening of the stance, that it might not be a completely 100% requirement for zero emissions per se, and that is going to be the remedy then, that hydrogen can be used with a little bit of diesel or even natural gas perhaps as a starter fuel there then, and that's going to be a minor percentage of that carbon input there. But at the same time, I think it's got a permanent place, and that's my understanding from discussing with some of the people in the engine business specifically.
And not just in fuel cells, not just to power a fuel cell, but rather to actually, go into an internal combustion engine. Yeah, interesting. I was fascinated.
I was going to say that I think Cummins is consciously pushing in that direction, and when you look at Westport, also they are moving in that similar direction there. Different markets, perhaps.
Yeah. I couldn't understand until they explained it to me why Cummins was already announcing sales of those vehicles for 2027. But apparently it has something to do with a lot of the regulations globally now are starting to get into line a little bit better than they used to be. And so now they can sort of, time these things out a little differently. I want to take you where I took Daryl a few minutes ago, Antti, and I know you're going to have not really be able to talk specific about companies, but we're seeing a shakeout now in the electric and the autonomous startup space. It's picking up speed. We covered the Embark Trucks announcement last week with 70% of its employees being laid off. We understand that Waymo has, if not shut down, at least paused the Waymo Via truck business, the autonomous business, even though they have a good partnership with Daimler Truck. And then we also see that, Nikola has got some financial issues that led to, a filing of a notice of going concern. And they've got some issues with Lion Electric that we've written about. Lots going on out there. What do you make of it in terms of a consolidation? Is that where we're headed now?
I think it's going to continue. I think it was clear last year already that it was too crowded to support all of that number of the new entrants that we have here. And that's why I think that cooperation between existing players is inevitable. We saw that already in Bollinger being taken over or selling it to Mullen, and Lightning and Bluebird getting together. It's just natural. There's too much the capital requirements are too heavy that it's really, really difficult for one company to do it alone. So it makes sense that two heads put together is stronger than just one individual here and another there, so to speak, if you put that in human terms. But anyway, I think it's going to continue. I think it's inevitable, and I think that's also part of the clearing out of the air that's happening, if you will, in the market, that the companies who were eager to enter this segment, the commercial vehicles, and there was all that talk about the e-commerce supporting so much of this business. But let's not forget it's not something that any company would give out market share free for somebody who's new to the business, or even for somebody who's been in the business for a long time. Everybody had to earn their own position there, and everybody has internal knowledge of the market that they use for their own best good to be able to push forward. I think there's been some overestimation from the newcomers, in other words, and the reality is hitting hard now.
Yeah, well, some of the legacy players that we didn't mention, like Navistar got in with a medium-duty electric early. Obviously, at Daimler, probably very soon we'll get the EM2 into production. We've already got Kenworth and Peterbilt with a medium-duty electrics or class 5 and 6 electrics out there. So it's getting very crowded too, even among the legacy players, who I guess will have to fight for pieces of a relatively small pie for now. Do you see, Antti, a hockey stick type of approach to this coming in terms of the adoption of electrics, especially in the medium-duty space?
Eventually, yeah. But right now, it's going to take some longer. You have to have more patience. In other words, you need to have deeper pockets to be able to go through this period of developing the market. It's a new market for most of the players here. So it's not going to happen overnight. And at the same time, we have the economic matters or economic factors playing against it right now. Yes, there's still a bit of a threat of a recession, and maybe not so much in the first half of this year, for example, in the U.S., but in the second half, demand is going to show in a slowing of the industry a little bit there. Right. And at the same time, the cost of money is rising, so interest rates are rising, so it's going to cost more to borrow that money.
Right.
Capitalism.
Well, Antti, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here. I'm glad the technology did not betray us again, and we could actually have this conversation. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show down there. And again, thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Alan. Appreciate it.
Okay, so folks, we're gonna go over and talk with Jennifer Rumsey, the CEO of Cummins, and with Amy Davis, who is the president of the New Power, now called Accelera division at Cummins, and we are happy to have them. Well, we had some big news this earlier today from Cummins, who went to Washington, D.C. to announce the rebranding of its New Power division as Accelera, which is an interesting name. I'm going to let our guests, Jen Rumsey, the CEO of Cummins, and Amy Davis, the president of Accelera, explain in more detail. Thank you both for joining me.
Thanks, Alan. We're happy to be here today.
Yeah, well, you guys took your show on the road. I mean, Columbus is a nice town. We love it. But I think you wanted a little bit of a different audience today, and I presume you got it. Tell me a little bit, if you would, who the target audience is for this announcement.
So we're really excited that today, as you said, we announced a new brand for our New Power business, Accelera by Cummins. Accelera is one of the key elements of Cummins' broader Destination Zero strategy, which is really our focus on decarbonizing our industry, commercial and industrial equipment. And trucking, of course, is a big piece of that. And so Cummins has invested for years in engine-based solutions, well known for our diesel engines. And we believe that both engines as well as these new zero emissions technologies are a critical part of decarbonizing our industry. By launching Accelera by Cummins, we're asserting a bold position on the leadership role we have today in these zero emissions technologies, as well as our commitment to continue to lead in this space to our customers, to our employees, to investors, and also to policymakers, which are going to be a key part of the collaboration that needs to happen to drive these zero emissions technologies forward.
Amy, your thoughts on why there, why now?
Yeah, it's really an exciting next step in our progression of a business unit totally focused on zero carbon solutions for the really tough commercial applications around the world. And being here was symbolic in the sense that to make this decarbonization accelerate, it's going to take partnerships. We had a lot of customers here today with us, strategic partners, policymakers, as Jen said. It's going to take all of us working together to accelerate the decarbonization in commercial space.
So you mentioned investors, Jen, and I just want to follow up with that because, you know, your stock is near a 52-week high right now, which is congratulations on that. But Wall Street is part of the audience for this, right? I mean, you know, you want to get some credit, I think, for the work that you've done. I think it's $900 million that you've invested in New Power, Accelera to this point. You're looking to get that message out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we launched Destination Zero just over a year ago, and our sustainability goals for our company and for our industry are aligned with our business goals. We see decarbonization as a growth opportunity for Cummins. We've set ambitious goals to grow both our core business and the engine-based solutions that will play a role in decarbonizing our industry, and also growing Accelera as an important part of advancing these zero emissions technologies. And we've evolved that business. So we have today 2,000 employees that come from Cummins, from a variety of acquisitions that we've done to build capability and our position in these zero emissions technologies. And we're bringing them together and really focusing them on moving these zero emissions technologies forward. So this year in Amy's business, we're projecting revenue to double from last year to $350 to $400 million. And by 2030, we're projecting that business will see $6 to $13 billion. Zero emissions technologies growing at that rate as Cummins positions ourselves as both a zero emissions power solutions provider and also in our role in the infrastructure, in particular electrolyzers for green hydrogen production. So you can talk a little bit more, Amy, about some of the key ways that we're really growing and positioning this business for the future. But it's a big part of our growth story. And I don't think people always recognize the role we have, the position we have today, and the opportunities to grow in this space for Cummins.
Exactly, Jen. And if you think about our business as a pure play, because that's really what we are singularly focused on zero carbon, zero emission solutions. So if you compare that revenue Jen talked about, if you compare our customer base, the applications we have in the field, the work we're doing on both vehicles, industrial, and infrastructure, we're doing it all, and we need to stand out on it. We need a platform to shine the light on that work so people see it and really recognize it for the leadership that it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Tom Weinbarger, Jen, told me over a year ago, I think when we talked way back in December of 21, he said he could see a day when New Power, again, what it was called at the time, could become sort of the lead engine, if you will, for an engine maker. That is that the script may flip in terms of New Power being the dominant thing, and engines, of course, still being important, because today they pay the bills, right, Amy? I mean, for what's going on. And I think this idea of a switch is particularly interesting. Does this move, the naming, the use of Accelera, does that begin to push the business in that direction?
Well, really, one of our main objectives is recognition of these zero emissions technologies, the role that Cummins plays, and our commitment to continue to lead in this space. And as you said, this is going to be a transition. That part of our business is going to grow. That number that we talked about, 6 to 13 billion by 2030, is some of our existing markets starting to move to these zero emissions technologies. And also a big part of that is the electrolyzer business. So we are projecting that our engine business and engine solutions will continue to grow during that time frame as well. Cummins has unmatched scale and a footprint globally that really positions us well to help our customers as they navigate this change, be able to continue to invest in this full range of solutions. We're committed to continuing to deliver strong returns to our investors and also take that investment and feed it back into engine solutions in the coming years, as well as these new solutions. Over time, though, the business and our customers will transition. So today, we're really focused on this dual path approach and how over time we enable the transition and the shift in our industry. And there's a lot of capabilities that we have across the broader Cummins that will play an important role in really growing and maturing the solutions that we're developing within Accelera by Cummins as well.
Well, one of the interesting things about Accelera, and you didn't address it this morning when you introduced it. You may not be prepared to even address it now, but the thought that, having just spun off or stood up your filtration business as a standalone, what down the road is these numbers that you've referred to a couple times, the $6 billion to $13 billion in revenue. Does Accelera become the kind of thing that perhaps stands up as an LLC or something like that in the future? I mean, again, to unlock that value, that maybe you're not getting enough credit for from Wall Street.
Look, these are the things that I'd say Cummins is really focused on and has a history of doing. We embrace challenge and turn challenge into opportunity. We use it to drive innovation and growth in our business. We take a long-term view around what our customers need, the challenges that our customers and our environment have, and look at how we evolve and change the company in response to that. And we're committed to delivering strong returns to our investors as well. So we're constantly evaluating our portfolio, our investments, and what we need to do to best meet the needs of our business, our customers, and our investors. And with that, we look at places we need to invest more, places that we maybe need to get out of. And the filtration is a phenomenal, strong business. It has opportunities to continue to grow and evolve in new spaces that are different than where Cummins Destination Zero strategy and our long-term focus are really going. And so we're providing an opportunity for that business to separate and really pursue the growth opportunity and value that it has on its own. What I hope you've heard from me is Destination Zero and our broader strategy for Cummins to decarbonize it takes both improving engine-based solutions and growing these zero-emission solutions. And there's a benefit. There's a reason it's Accelera by Cummins. Amy can talk a little bit about how she's thinking about what do we need to do differently? What are some unique focuses to be successful in these zero-emission solutions? And where are the places that you benefit and leverage some of what you have of being a part of a broader Cummins business?
So, Amy, what a great lead-in. I won't ask the question because Jen did. Why don't you explain a little bit, including perhaps a couple of announcements you made today as part of this rebranding. You announced a couple of pieces of business. Maybe you could take us through that.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jen and Alan. So we've always, when we set up this business, known that we would have to keep a little bit of separation, look for avenues of growth that might be non-traditional, new business models, new ways of working. We'd have to move fast, be agile. And so we've done that from day one. Now, this is just a next natural step by giving it a platform and a name that really embodies what we're trying to do. And so that, I think, is one component of it. If you look at actually what we are doing underneath the surface, we have a complete portfolio of products that working together can customize for different applications. But also we can find ways to have building blocks so that we can scale for commercial. So if you think about it, we have batteries, we have inverters, motors, we have traction systems, e-axles, battery management systems, and the controls capability to do it all. So today, we're selling some components to integrators or OEMs who want to do more themselves. And we're also selling subsystems and fully integrated drivetrains and even vehicles. So we're all over what is going to work together in combination to accelerate the shift for commercial applications. We talked today about school buses. What a great application for electrification today. And with our partner Bluebird, we're going to put 1,000 school buses into the market in the next 12 to 18 months. So this is just another example, and you'll keep hearing more about our work to accelerate the shift. And Accelera by Cummins gives this unique capability to have those buses supported by our distribution network, supported by our smart engineers and problem solvers that are already out there.
Well, I can't help but be reminded a little bit. You may not agree with this example, but Delphi back a decade ago split itself, actually renamed itself Aptiv, and then split off its technology businesses. Those ultimately were purchased by Borg Warner. Borg Warner now is spinning those off, or separating them essentially to focus on what? Electrification. So I guess I see that, and I see some smaller businesses too doing similar things, picking a name and basically trying to, I don't want to say reinvent, because, you started this process, in 2019 when you coined New Power, but this idea of setting it up, standing it up as something quote unquote new, it's not a new phenomenon. I mean, this is in fact the way it's done, right?
Yeah, so, we've been growing this business, as you said. Actually, we originally called it Electrified Power. Then we called it New Power. We've done 6 different acquisitions and building the capability of the team we have today. This is really a breakthrough inflection point for us to bring that together and assert the bold position we have and will continue to have to lead in these technologies. So Accelera by Cummins will continue to be our 5th business segment, an exciting, growing part of Cummins' broader business with Amy leading it. And we really do see that there's a lot of benefit of being focused on what accelerates and what enables success in these technologies, and not being afraid to take different approaches or try different things, and also leveraging the strength of being a part of Cummins and the capabilities that we've built over 100 years, strong partnerships and customers that are seeking us out and saying, we know that you're going to be there. We know you understand our applications and our business. How can you help us with this technology transition? We have this strong scale position, which as Amy's business is growing and bringing new products to market at a greater rate, she can tap into. Today, we're doing battery pack assemblies in our Columbus engine plant in Columbus, Indiana. No longer doing engines there, by the way. We announced that we're going to be doing electrolyzer assembly within our Fridley plant in Minnesota. And so there is synergy. I just want to really emphasize this point of be bold, be different, take risks, try new things, and be willing to do that. And also recognize where there's value of being a part of the broader Cummins brand.
Well, it's interesting too, because some of the businesses that I mentioned, are shedding things that maybe don't have a future focus. Your legacy business is as strong as it's ever been and getting stronger. And I guess it sounds a bit like a commercial coming from me, so you're welcome. But you're welcome. But the idea, for example, that you're going to do all the medium-duty engines for Daimler worldwide in a few years, that suggests that the engine business is just fine, thank you very much. But you see something else here, and you're pursuing it, aggressively. I mean, you mentioned the 6 acquisitions. I don't think it started necessarily with hydrogenics, but that was a big piece of it. And of course, the most recent one in Meritor, the most expensive one too, that brought a really important technology, Amy, which is the e-axle. Do you want to talk about, that gets you to the point of being able to integrate a full chassis, right?
Yeah, let me just talk about the engine piece, and then Amy, you should talk more about some of these acquisitions and the business that we have today. As you said, we're growing on the engine business side. We had record revenue and profitability last year for Cummins. Our markets, which I know your viewers really understand, trucking and commercial and industrial equipment are different than passenger car, right? They're different in how they're used. They're different in how this transition will occur, and in the solutions that are required in end state. And so that is a key piece of needing to continue to invest in engines, reducing CO2 emissions from engines through efficiency improvement and low and zero carbon fuel. And we're making big investments in that base business and doing that and enabling some of our customers to focus their investments in other places because they know we're going to be a leader in providing engine-based solutions at the same time as we're growing, advancing, and really accelerating these zero emissions technologies that'll be so important.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Alan, I can jump in on the e-axles. And, one of the things Jen's talking about is as we look at transforming vehicles in a cost-effective, realistic, and quick, fast, agile way, a lot of OEMs are looking at leveraging the common components in their chassis. And so an axle makes for a great packaging location for some of the electrified components. So we see that e-axles will be critical to various applications in the vehicle space and even into some of the industrial applications like bus and others. So what we got with that is deep, embedded relationships with major OEMs around the world, capabilities in integrating the electrified components into an axle system, and also some of their own research and investment in motors and inverters, which we've been investing in. And then they had acquired Siemens, which was also already very successful in many bus applications. So bringing this together adds to our portfolio. It's not just about batteries or fuel cells. This traction system is really the heart of it. It's going to be the power of it. And so optimizing them together for different duty cycles is going to be differentiating, because it can help with battery sizing, and it can help drive applications to the right TCO, total cost of ownership, which your viewers know well.
Sure. They live for it, actually. So real quick, Amy, I want to ask you a little bit about electrolyzers and hydrogen. I know you could talk for a half hour or more about that. We don't have that kind of time. But I do want to understand, because the other announcement that you made today did involve hydrogen. You're attacking both sides of what we famously call the chicken and the egg. Can you sort of take us through the hydrogen, the green hydrogen and electrolyzer piece of your business, quickly, I guess?
I'll do my best quickly. Electrolyzers are the biggest outgrowth opportunity for the company that comes through decarbonization. Today, there's hydrogen produced all over the world, and it's often produced using natural gas, so it creates carbon. And so an opportunity today is putting our electrolyzer solutions into existing hydrogen production and making them green hydrogen, meaning there's no carbon produced anywhere in the cycle. So that's right here and now, and it has nothing to do with adoption of mobility. So that's really new markets for us. There's also industries that are using hydrogen, whether it's fertilizer or steel producing or chip producing. They need hydrogen, and they want green hydrogen. It's part of their sustainability objective. Again, completely new segments for our company. And now we're starting to see big infrastructure projects, which means, like, how do we do large scale hydrogen production that we can get into fueling stations around the world to power and be able to fuel these mobility solutions. That's coming, but we have opportunities now. So it's really having technology that can serve now, but then scale for these bigger infrastructure projects.
Sure, it's an enviable place to be, I think. Jen, I want to get you guys out of here on this one, and I'll take comments from both of you. I guess really Tom brought it up, but there's a culture issue here. You talked about 2,000 employees gathered from lots of different places, lots of acquisitions, plus your own people that make up Accelera now. But you're a company of 60-some thousand. I don't know the exact number, 60-some-thousand employees.
73,000 now.
73.
Acquisitions last year.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So I guess what I'm getting at is, what about the culture? Do you have, if Accelera is sort of a startup culture, you've referenced that without using the term so far. If that is a startup, how does the culture, sort of net out? And Jen, you as the leader of the company, probably best to answer this.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a really important question. One of the things I think a lot about as CEO, and really there's two elements of our strategy. More broadly for Cummins, we want to create an environment where we attract diverse talent from a variety of different backgrounds and enable all of our employees to grow and develop. And that investment in skilled talent and leadership capability in the company is one of our core strategies. We believe it gives us a competitive advantage. At the same time, this balance of being strong and having the benefits of being a part of a 100-year-old company, while also being more agile and recognizing that we are competing with startups and in a technology space that is still evolving very rapidly. And so through that, we are empowering Accelera to think about where do we need to use different processes, different business models, create a different environment to ensure that we are leveraging the benefits and strengths of Cummins, but also competing in a world that can be very different.
Yeah. Guys, thank you. We're out of time for this. Thank you so much for coming on from DC today. Look forward to catching up with you individually down the road here on Truck Tech. And again, thank you for being here.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
So Jen and Amy are leading Cummins in some new directions and reinforcing some of the original businesses, which is really, I think, why we spend a lot of time covering Cummins. They have their hands pretty much in everything, or bets on all colors, red and black, if you will. I think that, being able to have them today when they announced the Accelera thing was tremendous. I really appreciate, John Mills setting that up for us and bringing them to us. I really want to look at this week as being kind of a neat week. We had a lot of news on the show today, and it was great to be able to pull it all together. So thanks to Daryl and to Antti, to Jen, and to Amy. Next week on Truck Tech, we will be with Gautam Narang, who is the co-founder and CEO of Gatik. Gatik continues to develop new business in the middle mile segment for autonomy. They're actually out there with driverless trucks taking groceries and other cargo from point A to point B. Very definitely something that is worth revisiting. We had Sam Saad from Gatik on a few weeks ago with Mike Placentia from Ryder talking partnership. Now we might be in a position to talk a little bit about customer relationships and new customers. So an exciting show for you next week. Thank you again for joining us, being with us today, and have a great week.